The entertainment medium is wild to me because I think there's so many varying opinions about how media is received. You know, some people like certain movies, some people like certain music, but when it comes to video games, it seems like there's definitely generally more across the board consensuses when it comes to actually reviewing and talking about a game. The Callisto Protocol was a game that I've had on my radar for quite a while. I was actually pretty excited for this game. I enjoy survival horror games or horror games in general mixed with action elements, so this was something I thought looked really cool. A lot of the team from the original Dead Space was also working on this game, and pretty much everything I saw from this game looked very much like Dead Space. Previews seemed to be pretty positive, a lot of people were excited, and then the game came out, and I mean, just take a look at the Metacritic. I think the Metacritic rating is actually higher than what a lot of YouTubers are actually rating this as well, because a lot of people seem to be disheartened by this game. They seem to be disappointed. This wasn't what they were expecting or what they necessarily wanted. Now, as someone who loved Dead Space 1 and 2, didn't really like Dead Space 3, I even like Dead Space Extraction on the Wii. I thought that was a pretty fun game. I was honestly looking forward to this game, and after playing through it, I like it. I like the game. I think there's a lot of positive things within this game, and I don't think it's quite as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be. The story is pretty cliche, you know, you're in outer space, there's dead stuff. I'm just kidding. You're basically introduced to some characters trying to breach onto your ship. Something happens, this, that, or the other. You end up getting put into a prison cell. Something happens, this, that, or the other. And then there's all these dead creatures that are trying to be revived and kill you. There's weird scientific experiments happening. Some people trying to help you, some people trying to screw you over. A mysterious woman. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's a good enough vessel to move things along. The thing I was interested in with Callisto Protocol was the gameplay. All of these previews that we saw from the game looked really cool. It looked very sort of nerve-wracking how you would have to avoid these enemies that seem to be a bit like bullet sponges at times. Now, the way that the combat works in the game, I think works pretty well. There's lots of nods to the original Dead Space game, such as having your health bar on the back of your character's head so you feel right at home. As you start to progress through the game, you do get a variety of different weapons that you can actually upgrade as you're playing throughout the game, and of course you have melee attacks. Now, the melee attacks I think are pretty fun. They're pretty satisfying. Hitting these creatures with your baton that you end up getting that you can also level up is a very satisfying experience. Everything feels like it has weight to it along with your swings, and I think it works pretty well. Once you get the gun and start leveling up the gun, you actually get the ability to do different things with that gun as well, such as incorporating it into your melee attacks. You end up doing some really cool combos with it, and although it is at a bit of a slower pace when you're moving and doing these attacks, I think it's still very satisfying. You do get some other weapons as the game progresses throughout, such as better guns and stuff, and everything basically runs on a credit system. Whenever you kill an enemy, you could stomp that enemy's corpse and essentially get some credit or get some additional health that you can use because there's not a lot of health scattered throughout the game. You do end up getting some sort of like health pack things that you kind of stick into your neck that sort of give you some more health and refill your health meter, but sometimes you might find yourself just needing a little bit of health, and these enemy drops are a good way to do it. As far as the other gameplay is concerned, when you're actually within these fights, you do have a variety of ways to avoid enemy attacks. You could dodge. There's a whole dodge system where dodging to the left or dodging to the right is done with the L stick, and you can hit down on the L stick in order to block an attack. There's not really a parry in the game, but you could kind of use the block as a bit of a parry. Beyond all that, you get to a point in the game where I'm trying not to really spoil anything because it's not an exactly long game, but you essentially get like some force powers. Like you can grab people through the air with this glove that you get and sort of chuck them away, kind of like, you know, a Star Wars kind of character. That of course is really cool because there's lots of environments that you could throw these characters into and get them killed, so that way you don't have to fight a lot of people all at once. You can kind of thin out a herd if you get into a sticky situation. I really like the death animations of both the characters that you are killing and the death animations that happen to you. There's a lot of environmental based death animations that kind of just work with the environment. It's not like something where you have to hit a button in order to trigger it at the right time. If you're next to something, you'll kind of push against your enemy and push them up against it and then finish them off. And along with the enemies killing you, there's lots of disgusting things. This is stuff that makes Mortal Kombat look kind of like child's play. Brett, while you're editing this video, please God don't put anything too bad. I don't want to get this age restricted on YouTube. But there are definitely some very gory situations within this game that end up happening to you. You do have a very balanced checkpoint system. I feel the game constantly auto saves. You can also do manual saves as well. This is through my experience playing it on the normal difficulty. There are a total of 3 different difficulties, an easy difficulty and a harder difficulty. I played it through the game on normal because I'm kind of a normal person. I feel like the gameplay does feel a bit sluggish at times, but I don't think that's necessarily a detriment to the game. It's kind of what I expected the game to play like. Like I said, this game looked like Dead Space. It looked like it played like Dead Space, and maybe people wanted a huge innovation with the Dead Space franchise with the Callisto Protocol, but I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I was expecting more of an homage to the original Dead Space games, and I think that's what this is. In terms of presentation, I think the game knocks it out of the park. There's some absolutely disturbing scenes that you get into on this ship as you're exploring different areas, and of course all the enemies are all grotesque looking. The damage that's done to you, like I said, through various means of combat is absolutely stunning and horrifying. I think the atmosphere is absolutely well crafted and definitely gives you a sense of horror and dread throughout the entire experience. Even when there's no enemies on screen, you still don't feel very comfortable with the environment that you're in. The sound design in the game is absolutely top notch. If you've got a set of headphones to play with and listen to this game in headphones, it sounds so freaking good. I absolutely love the sound design in this game. There's so many little sounds that you hear throughout the experience, and it definitely adds a lot to it. So what don't I like about the game? I do feel like at times it does feel like the 360 era of Dead Space. And I kind of mentioned that before, but sometimes when there's a large group of enemies, you know, if there's 2 or 3 or more enemies that you're fighting at once, it can feel a bit clunky and unintuitive compared to other games. You know, it's not going to be a game where you have lock on. You can't lock onto an enemy or anything like that. It's pretty much just done by you controlling the character. It can be a little bit frustrating at times, especially if you're not used to games in that sort of style. But for me, I was able to adjust to it very well. I think that the story itself is a little bit cliche. It's not all that interesting. The ending definitely left a bit of a sour taste in some people's mouths, and the game itself isn't really all that long. It's, you know, it takes you about 8 to 10 hours, maybe 12 hours if you get stuck. So for a lot of people, they complain, oh, you know, $70 for an 8 to 10 hour game. I'm not getting my money's worth. But I feel like if you're a fan of the horror genre, it is worth it to you. I think my biggest question with reviewers in this game and why they didn't like it is, like, why? Are you gonna say the same things about the Dead Space remake that comes out in January? Because newsflash, that game is probably gonna play pretty damn similar to this. It's just gonna have a new coat of paint. It's gonna have the same story, it's gonna have the same elements, it's gonna have all the same stuff that you're accustomed to with the first Dead Space game. It's just gonna look a bit prettier and maybe control a little bit more fluid. Essentially what the Callisto Protocol is doing is it's paying homage to this game, the original Dead Space game, but sort of doing some things a bit differently. I don't know, man. It's a very strange situation to me. If you're a fan of horror games and survival horror games, I think there's a lot to like about this game. You know, they constantly add in more things into your inventory to make the game still feel fresh. The environments themselves are fun to look around in. It's not, maybe the problem is, comparative to other games, you know, like a game like God of War, okay, yeah, it's not as, you know, interactive as something like God of War is. It's definitely more of a straight, streamlined experience, a bit of a more linear adventure where you're not going off the beaten path all that much. You pretty much know where to go. But that was never what was going to be exciting for me with this game. The exciting part was the combat, and I love the combat. I think the combat is super fun, and I would say 9.5 times out of 10, the reason you die is because of you. You know, you might get caught in a little bit of a cheap camera angle or something like that, but there's save spots all over the game. I don't know. It's not a perfect game. It's not a perfect game. If I had to score it, I would probably say a mid-8. There's definitely a lot of things I liked about the game, but I just don't think it's nearly as bad as a lot of people have been making this game out to be. If you're a fan of survival horror games and horror games in general, this is definitely something you're probably already checking out or something you should be looking forward to check out. And I mean, worst case, if you're indifferent towards it with these reviews and the way that the stock is going for this company that published the game, it's gonna go on sale anyways pretty soon. Don't sleep on this game though. I enjoyed it, and I think you might enjoy it too. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have played Callisto Protocol, if so, what you enjoyed from the game or what you didn't enjoy from it. Am I just the weirdo in this situation? Is this a bad game and I just don't realize it? Or is there something fun to be had here, especially if you're a fan of the original source material? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Hit that bell notification as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.